The death by poisoning of a former Russian spy in London was thrust back into the headlines today as a British inquiry into his killing released its report. Alexander Litvinenko fled Russia nearly 20 years ago and accused the former chief of Russia's spy agency, now President Vladimir Putin, of corruption. In 2006, he met two Russian spies at a London hotel, and 3 weeks later, he was dead. Chris Shipp of Independent Television News begins our coverage.
We were reminded today that the radioactive poison inside Alexander Litvinenko's body was so strong he had to be buried in a lead-lined coffin. Today, the Russian security service, the FSB, was blamed for his killing. And the orders concluded the man who led the inquiry most likely came from the top, the very top, he said.
The operation to kill Mr. Litvinenko was probably approved by Mr. Patrushev, then head of the FSB, and also by President Putin.
The FSB agents did it by pouring a deadly substance, polonium-210, into this teapot from which Mr. Litvinenko was drinking. This was him in a hotel lobby a few moments before the meeting. He took just 3 or 4 sips of tea, he later told police, but after he'd left the hotel, the radiation had already started to spread through his body. At the inquiry, the poisoning in a meeting room of the hotel here was referred to as a mini-act of nuclear terrorism on the streets of London. And because the orders likely came from the Kremlin, Mr. Litvinenko's widow has demanded today the strongest possible response from the British government.
It's a time for David Cameron. I'm calling immediately for expulsion from the UK of all Russian intelligence operatives.
Later, she told me she hoped justice would catch up with President Putin.
Yes, we know not all dictators exist forever, and one day you need to answer for everything what you did.
This was a blatant and unacceptable breach of the most fundamental tenets of international law and of civilized behavior.
If there was any doubt Litvinenko was a target of the Russian state, watch this video of Russian special forces in training. Their target, Alexander Litvinenko. But the man accused of his poisoning, Andrei Lugovoy, now, by the way, a senior Russian politician, said today the accusations against me are absurd and once again confirmed London's anti-Russian stance. Nothing from President Putin himself today, but Britain's reliance on him in the fight against IS in Syria may limit the UK's response for a murder which turned this man into this one days before his death.